Hi, everybody. My name is Gerry Gavin. If you don't know of me, I'm the best-selling author of two Hay House books that are about angelic communication. They are Messages from Margaret and If You Could Talk to an Angel. And besides doing that, I've also been involved for well over 25 years in shamanism, and particularly doing work in the area of soul retrieval, of bringing back the lost pieces of someone's soul. And that has spurred so much interest over the course of the last year. There have been so many people who've been inquiring about this, and so many comments that Margaret, the angel that I channel, has been making on the radio program that we do on Blog Talk Radio called Messages from Margaret, that I wanted to put out this special video series so we could talk about this. We could talk about the nature of the soul. We could talk about everything and answer all of your questions as we normally do when we're discussing this in the very beginning of a soul retrieval session. So let's begin it this way. About 2 years ago, I was in the midst of doing the radio program, and Margaret was talking to a caller, and she was talking to her about a method of soul loss that woman had occurred for her. And it was something that was of incredible concern to me because I'd been doing soul retrieval for well over 25 years and had never heard of this particular type of soul loss. So right after the radio program, I reached out to Margaret and I asked her, what are you talking about? I never heard of this. She explained it all to me. I immediately began to include it in my work in soul retrieval. But the thing is, that conversation led to a bigger conversation. And that bigger conversation was asking Margaret everything I could possibly ask her about what is the soul, what is the nature of the soul, how does it actually happen that we lose soul energy, what can we do to try to prevent it, what can we do to notice when it's happening. So what you're going to hear in the course of these next 4 videos that I'm going to be doing is information that came directly from my angel Margaret. A lot of stuff I was not aware of prior to that conversation, so we're sharing a lot of really, really great material with you, and I'm sure some of it may be things that you've never heard before. But let's start off with how she explained it to me. And in explaining it to me, what she said is, if you want to understand the concept of the potential possibility of losing soul energy, then you need to understand soul energy to begin with. And what she explained is that what we may normally see as being our soul, I know so often we think of our soul and we think about it as being this kind of spiritual sense of us that lives in between our incarnations, so that we're in our soul state. If we believe in reincarnation, we believe then we come into our physical state. When our physical state is over, we go back to our soul state, and then we make a decision if we're going to do it again. What she says is, in fact, our soul is enormous. It is bigger than anything we could possibly comprehend with our human mind. And this incredibly huge soul winds up taking pieces of itself, just a piece of that energy, and placing it in all different types of life forms, all different types of incarnations, for the purpose of being able to expand its own energy, bring that energy back, reinvest it again. And so our souls, who we truly are, is this amazing energy that is always on the front line, if you will, of expanding the energy in the universe. So here's how she explains it. She says there are essentially 3 forms of energy in the universe. There is the creator, the origin of all energy, that in the very beginning was a being of light, and that being of light compressed itself into such a tight ball that ball of energy wound up having this huge explosion. And when that explosion took place, light separated from itself and created darkness. And that darkness now allowed there to be separation between the light and the darkness. And the first form of creation other than the creator came forth, which were beings that were very close to the energy of the creator, and they were called and still are called angels. And then in conjunction with the Creator, those angels then created another form of life called the souls. And that's us. That's who we are, just 2 steps removed from the Creator. We, in turn, then had the ability to make the decision, did we want to just live in the light moving forward from there on in, and everything in creation stopping at that point in time? Or did we want to have the opportunity to experience a wide array of all types of experiences that might generate from those things that are of the light, which is love and compassion and understanding and everything of that nature? Or did we possibly also want to experience things that were not of the light, that were separated from the light, and that would give us a whole different array of experiences, but in so doing would give us the opportunity to grow our soul energy and to bring more of it back so that we could then invest it in more and more and more things and grow that energy even bigger. And that, for some of you who know the story of creation, there is an aspect in the story of creation where they talk about human beings being given the ability to choose by eating the fruit of knowledge between knowing things that were just light or being able to know this vast array of experiences. And Margaret says that story came from this experience that souls had, that we were, in fact, making this decision to have so much more and be so much more. And that was when we began this process of taking a part of our energy and placing it in other life forms, usually denser physical life forms, that gave us the ability to grow within that form and to grow within that experience so we would be able to have more energy. Now, Margaret says that energy, that big soul, that incredible part of who we are, we refer to that very often already as the higher self. And she's absolutely fine with that description, because she said using that phraseology of the higher self really makes a tremendous amount of sense. So that is what that energy is. That is the higher self. The energy then that we take, that piece of that energy that we take, and we place into some type of a life form, whether that life form is a tree or a blade of grass or an animal, or as in these cases, human beings, that she refers to as the consciousness, the energy that breathes consciousness and life into that particular thing. Now, since we're coming into beings of physicality, what winds up happening is that by putting our energy into things that are physical, we know right from the get-go that that energy is going to grow. We know that because everything physical grows. Everything starts out as a seed and then grows into something bigger. So if we were to do nothing else, nothing at all, but just to become a physical being, just doing that, we would be able to grow that energy and return back to the higher self with more energy than we started out with. But you know what? We don't do just that. And particularly in the case of being a human being, because in this situation, we come into this physical being and we also have a vast array of experiences. And that vast array of experiences that we have the ability to then choose how we are going to respond to those experiences. And we respond to those experiences by this thing called emotions. Now, as we talk about emotions, let me explain something just a little further that Margaret said. She said often people will separate the world into 2 different things. We will talk about the world of science and the world of spirit. And she said the fact is the world of science and the world of spirit are one thing. Because everything that exists in the universe is cellular. There is some cellular structure to every single thing. Now, we have come to understand that a little bit better because we've come to understand the cellular nature of an atom and atomic structure, and the fact that everything, even in the greatest physical sense, even those things we can't see necessarily, have some form of cellular structure. And understanding that is very, very important in this next part, because what drives our ability to respond to the experiences that we have in our life, what gives us the sense as to whether or not something is considered to be a good experience or a bad experience, and that is obviously all relative, because to our soul, to our consciousness, there is no such thing as a good or a bad experience. Our soul just sees it all as experience. It just loves it. It wants to have the opportunity to experience everything, to learn from it, to grow from it, to do everything, and to take it back to the higher self and share it with other higher selves, so that there's more than enough opportunity to share all this information on every experience that's out there. But we undergo this other form of energetic perception. And this form of energetic perception that we undergo is called emotions. Now, there are a lot of teachers, and I'm sure many of you have seen them, that talk about emotions, and they kind of use the E in emotion in the same way that Einstein did with the theory of relativity, in meaning energy. And then the word motion next to it, or energy, E equals motion. But what Margaret describes this as is that emotion is, in fact, exactly that. It is energy in motion. So if we had all these experiences and we had no emotion, again, every one of us would respond to those experiences in the same sort of intellectual manner that is a certain experience, but we would not have a way to decipher or delineate it from our particular point of view. And here's the thing when we talk about cellular structure. Every emotion, Margaret says, since it is energy in motion, every emotion has its own cellular structure. And that's going to be very important in some things that we're going to be talking about in subsequent videos. But remember that for a moment, that every emotion has its own unique cellular structure. So the emotion of shame and the emotion of anger and the emotion of fear and the emotion of love and joy, compassion, they all have their own structure. That's why if you talk to anybody in the world and you ask them, hey, can you tell me, what does shame feel like to you? What does betrayal feel like to you? They're going to describe exactly those same kind of feelings as you have, because these are universal energies. They are energies that have a very specific cellular structure, and that is how we experience them. So we know all those feelings. The interesting part about this incarnation, though, and part of this human experience, is that when we are experiencing these emotions, we can be going through exactly the same experience, but depending upon where we're coming from in that experience, we may perceive something completely different. So imagine for a second that there is a couple who is having a conversation, and they are in the process of breaking up. And the man in this particular situation, they've been dating for a little while, but he just met someone and he is head over heels in love with this person that he's just met, which was an emotion that he never felt in the previous relationship. But the woman in this current relationship is head over heels in love with him. So as they're having a story about breaking up, there is the same situation. That exact same framework of breaking up is the same experience to both of them. But how they are perceiving it, the emotions that they are going through, he is going through the emotion of relief and moving towards love and expansion and these wonderful feelings. She is going through the feelings of betrayal and abandonment and feeling grief and fear and a lot of other different things. So here we are in that exact same circumstance, and yet they are feeling exactly those things in such a different way. So what's happening is that it very much depends upon where you are within that given experience as to how you are able to kind of grow your soul as to how that experience is going to be. And again, as we said, not only do you grow your soul by just being within this physical body, but you grow your soul by choosing love in the midst of whatever experience you are going through. You grow your soul by choosing love in the midst of whatever experience you're going through. So imagine that for just a moment. If in this particular situation, he's going through love because he's going through that expansion, she's not. She's going through fear. And here's something very important about the energy of love and fear. Margaret says if we want to understand most things about energy, all we have to do is look at it from within our own physical bodies. We all have gone through a situation in our lives where we have either felt so loved or loved someone or something so much that that energy welled up so much within our heart that we actually felt like our chest was going to burst. I know when I do soul retrieval work, I talk to people about this, and everyone has experienced that feeling of expansion, like you just can't contain that energy of love, and you can't. It's leaking over into your energetic field. That is such an amazing feeling when love is so expansive. And in that same regard, don't we all know someone in our lives that is just so full of love? They are so immense in their energy that they are that kind of people, that kind of person rather, who walks into a room and they just light up the room. And everybody wants to be around them. They're like the sun. They've got this gravitational pull. And you love being by them. And part of why you do is because they have so much love that they're vibrating at such a high frequency that you can feel that frequency. And when you go over by them, it lifts your energy up. And you feel amazing. That's the feeling of love. Love is expansive. Love is incredible. Love just continues to expand the energy of the soul. Fear, on the other hand, is a contracting energy. And we know that as well in our own personal experiences, because you know what it's like when you get that telephone call and you look at the caller ID and you're like, oh, I can't talk to this person right now. I just can't do it. Every time I do, they're so troubled, and they're going to talk about all the things that are bad in their life, and I just can't do it right now. And as you're doing that, you can kind of feel your muscles tightening, and you're already feeling tired. You know that fatigue feeling you get when you're on the phone with them. That's because they are at that lower vibrational frequency, and at that lower vibrational frequency, what's happening is that they are now bringing your energy down. And so you're feeling that loss of your own personal energy. So when we're looking at energy, that kind of helps us to understand that the feeling of love is expansive and the feeling of fear, not wanting to be a part of that, is contracting. We even notice that physically, that when you're going into a situation you don't exactly know and you're a little nervous, sometimes you might like cross your arms over your heart and you're protecting that area. More frequently, we have a tendency to cross our arms right over our solar plexus area. And that's another thing we're going to talk about in the next video, because this is a very, very important area that has to do with your personal energy, both where you draw that personal energy in and where you lose it. So you're always protecting energy that's in this area. So if you find yourself talking to somebody and crossing your arms a lot, and you notice that, or you may be in a room and you find yourself putting your hands over there, that's what you're doing. You're not realizing it, but you're protecting that energy. So we know that we have this amazing, amazing soul that is causing us to want to expand our energy, that's causing us to want to experience everything we can experience. This consciousness, that part of our soul that's within us, it wants to be able to expand everything that we can. Where does the contraction come in then? How does that happen? Well, how that happens is in this amazing system of checks and balances that we have in this creative process, and that is our brain. So whether you refer to it as the brain, whether you refer to it as the mind, whether you refer to it as the ego, and by the way, Margaret always says that when you refer to it as the ego, please be kind, because the ego gets such a bad rap. This energy is here and it is constantly doing things. Your brain is constantly doing things to try to protect you. That is its job. Your brain's entire job is to create balance within you to create systematic balance within this body and to do everything it can to protect this body so that you can be here for as long as you can possibly be here, to keep having soul experiences and expanding the energy of your soul. So anything that the brain is doing that you might consider to be, I hate when my brain gets in the way about this or that, trust me, it's only doing it because it's trying to protect you. And it's protecting you based on a lot of other experiences that you've had that you might not realize it's trying to protect you from. So if we think of our soul then as being the place of expansion, our brain then is the place of contraction. It is the place that is thinking about, is this safe? Is this okay? Is this a good thing to do? Margaret tells a great story about that. She says, and again, this is one of those experiences that I think happens to all of us. If you've ever been on the top of a tall building and you kind of look over the side, maybe it's a skyscraper, somebody's balcony, whatever it might be, and you take a look over the side and you think to yourself, whoa, that's pretty far down there. Wow, that is a long drop. And then you involuntarily find yourself taking a step back. You don't really know why you're doing it. You don't even realize it, because in that split second, a conversation, she says, has happened between your soul and your brain, in which your soul, when you look at it, goes, whoa, that is one long drop down there. What would it feel like to fall? That free fall must be amazing. I would love to experience that free fall. And wow, what about when you hit the ground? That's got to be an amazing experience. I've never experienced that before. I would love to do it. And then you find yourself, without ever even having given it a thought, you take a step back. And now from that step back, you glance over again. And that's because at that point, the brain has said to your soul, no soul, we're not going to experience that today, okay? This is not something we want to do, because that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You take that drop today, game over, we're done. So those kind of conversations happen between your brain and your soul all the time. There's always this dialogue that's taking place in which your brain is trying to help your soul to do experiences and to have experience that's going to keep your body alive and going to keep it safe. And that same sort of situation happens when you get hurt, when you have painful emotional experiences in your life, when you have painful physical experiences or psychological experiences. All of these experiences add to this process of your brain registering all that information, so that when your soul wants to have a new experience, it will look in the files and say, what is that experience like? And then make that determination of, is this something that I think is safe for her to do or for him to do? And then once I know that, then the brain will feed you some information in what might be that way. And that's why you sometimes can see, we know people who operate their lives more from the point of view of the soul, and some people who operate their lives more from the point of view of the brain. Sometimes we might even say that about the people who are operating from the place of their soul, like, where were their brains at? What were they doing, you know? So the daredevil people, the people who try really unusual foods or do really unusual things, they're looking to have those incredible experiences. So they're coming more from the point of view of the soul. People who are living more safe kind of existences are coming much more from the point of view of the brain. So let me close this particular video out with a little story that Margaret tells. And I love this story because I think it makes so much sense. What she says is, she said, everyone, or almost everyone, and I think you would probably include yourself in it, loves the experience of going to a restaurant. And we almost all do, right? We love going to a restaurant. We love having the opportunity to experience that experience. And it may be because you don't like cooking, or it may also be because it's just a fun experience. And she said the reason why we do is that the restaurant experience is such a perfect microcosm of the experience of our relationship between our higher self, our consciousness, and our physical form. That is what we love the restaurant experience, because that's what we really, really came here to experience. We came here to have this kind of experience in our human form. So let me explain it for just a moment. So she says, when you walk in the restaurant, what happens? You walk in and you're greeted by someone who's very friendly and seems very happy to see you. And they say, hey, we're really glad you came today. Either I'm going to take you to a special place where you can be seated and get ready for your restaurant experience, or maybe that place isn't ready, but we have another special place that you could go to and you could sit and relax and maybe have a cocktail and just take it easy for a little while, and we'll take care of you there. Or when you get brought to your table, now there is a second person who comes over to you, and this person is actually called a server. So now you have these people who are very happy to see you, who've made this special place for you. Now there's someone who's serving you, whose entire job it is just to serve you for a period of time. And they're very happy to do it, and their whole goal is to make you happy, to bring you joy. Right? And the first thing they tell you about is what's special in this experience that you're going to be able to do. What's unique about this particular experience? What's going to be really special and fun and really cool about this? And if there's nothing about those specials, those exciting, different, soul-based sort of things that you might really want to have, then there is a regular menu of all kinds of items that you might like to try, that are more predictable, but that are still choices that you have to make. And then you have, depending upon these choices you make, you can get something you really, really like, or you might not get something you like. And then you have a choice again, or do you want to send that thing back you don't really like, or do you want to stick with it, you know? Now, Margaret says that experience is so much like our lives, because think about it. We come in and we're a little baby who breathes in their soul when they take that very first breath, and they're independent from their parent. And from the time that little baby is born, you have all these people who are so happy to see you, and they're welcoming you, and they can't wait to bring you to that special place that they've set up for you, that wonderful new nursery or wherever it is that you're coming into. And now you start to learn, when you're little, you have all these choices, kind of like the menu that you have in the restaurant. And as you're growing older, there are more and more choices that you have. And you'll have more and more opportunities to choose those things as you decide to do them. And there's all kinds of special things that you can do too, that are out of the realm of the ordinary, but that are very, very unique experiences that you can have. And those are things your parents might teach you about, or your friends might teach you about, or scary YouTube videos might teach you about. But whatever they might be, there are these special experiences that you have the chance to experience. Now, you may be a person who comes from the place of the soul, and you want to hear the specials first, and you're almost always going to try the special, because it's new and it's different and there's something really cool about it that you want to be able to try. If you're a person coming from your brain, you may be the kind of person, and I've got to be honest, that's kind of like me, who goes to a restaurant and loves going to some restaurants that I absolutely love, because I know the restaurant, I know the dishes they have, I know that I just love to have that particular dish. So I am the less adventurous eater. And similarly in life, just as with being a less adventurous eater, sometimes relationships are like what we choose with food. We may get involved in relationships, and that relationship may be something that once we've tasted it, once we've been a part of it, we may say, ooh, you know what? I really should not have ordered this. This is not something that I thought about when I ordered it. But now we are there. We ordered it already. Do we send it back? Do we stay with it, even though it was something that isn't really helping us out in this particular situation, or it's not really making us happy in this particular situation? That's part of what we have to decide in this experience. That's part of this amazing experience we have in this lifetime, this experience of choices, this experience of having the opportunity to have a wide array of things that we can do, places that we can go, experiences we can have, and still always new and special experiences, and all of this a way to be able to grow our soul. And the key to growing that soul energy is to find the love in every one of those experiences. Just as you might eat a dish that you don't particularly like, you tend to find what it is about that dish that you do like so that you can enjoy it. And when you do that, it makes the experience partially enjoyable. That's part of what we long to do with our soul in our everyday experiences. We long to bring the joy to our life, even in the hardest situations that we may have had to encounter. Napoleon Hill, the great author of Think and Grow Rich, he interviewed a lot of people who were very, very successful back in the 20s and 30s. And what he found out is the most successful people, the Carnegies, the Mellons, the Rockefellers, they all had one thing in common. They looked for the seed of equivalent benefit, that thing that was good inside of every experience that they had. And it was from that seed that they built the success of their next experience. And that was how they grew. And they grew their soul energy. And in turn, they grew their personal success. Thomas Edison was interviewed by Napoleon Hill. And there's a great interview I remember with Thomas Edison. And Edison was talking about speaking to a reporter after he had discovered, or his team had discovered, the incandescent light bulb, one of the greatest discoveries of all time. And Edison was asked by this reporter, how did you do it? We know you had thousands and thousands and thousands of experiments in which you tried to create the light bulb and you couldn't, and now you did. What was different? What did you do differently? And Edison laughed and he said, I ran out of ways to do it wrong. Well, that is a great place to leave us today and take us into the next video that's going to be coming up. And that is, his theory was about treating life almost like experiments, science experiments. Again, science and spirituality coming together. If we don't look at our lives in such a clear sense of black and white, if we're not looking at our life as this is it, it's good or it's bad, but rather we look at it from the point of view of the experience itself and wondering, what can I learn from this experience? What can I take from this experience? What part of this experience has helped me to grow so that I can actually love that part of that experience? That's the place where we grow our soul energy. So I thank you guys very much for being a part of this first video. I want to let you know that we would love to offer you guys as a free gift for being a part of this, a special set of exercises that we do called the soul exercises that can help you to ground and open up your soul. So what I would love if you could do is just send me an email at gerry@gerrygavin.com. Let me know how you're enjoying the videos so far, and I will make sure that you get a link to those exercises. And if anyone is interested in more information about your own soul and soul loss and getting it back, by all means go to the website and check out that information there. In the next video, we're going to be talking about the 3 decisions that you make when you decide to come into this human incarnation. And there are 3 very specific decisions that you make when you are still in the place of your higher self. And I think some of them are going to be really, really surprising to you. So thank you so very much for being a part of this first video, and I look forward to seeing you at the second video. Thanks, everybody.